6 months after the incident, things were changing. Slowly, carefully, like watching ice melt in spring, but changing nonetheless. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood in the Kuiper Belt, suited up in her environmental gear, watching as engineers deactivated platform KB-2847. It had been one of the first weapons placed in the outer system, nearly 160 years ago. Now it was being shut down. Sad to see them go? Her assistant asked. Sarah shook her head. No, relieved actually. I've been maintaining these things for 20 years. The whole time I kept thinking about what they were built to do. Now I don't have to think about it anymore. The platform's lights dimmed. The weapons that could accelerate tungsten rods to 40% of light speed powered down. Another piece of humanity's fortress going dark. How many more to go? The assistant asked. About 18,000 in this sector alone, Sarah replied. At this rate, it'll take us 5 years to deactivate half the network. 10 years to remove it all. You think we're doing the right thing? Sarah watched the dead platform drift away. I think fear made us build these. And courage is tearing them down. So yeah, I think we're doing the right thing. Meanwhile, on Earth, a delegation of council engineers was getting a tour of a heavily restricted facility. They walked through corridors deep underground, surrounded by security protocols and armed guards. The lead engineer was a Velkari named Shental, and she had been studying human technology for months. I still don't understand how you did it, she said to her human counterpart, Dr. Marcus Webb. The computational power needed to track and target that many objects simultaneously is beyond anything we have. Marcus smiled. That's because you're thinking about it wrong. You build one big system. We built millions of small ones that talk to each other. He led them into a room filled with servers. Each weapons platform has its own AI. Simple, focused, designed for one task. They don't need to understand strategy or politics or philosophy. They just need to calculate trajectories and fire when authorized. But they all coordinated perfectly, because they share information instantly. Every platform knows what every other platform is doing. They solve the problem together, not individually. It's like a swarm of insects. Each one is simple, but together they're incredibly efficient. Shental's light pulsed thoughtfully. Distributed intelligence. We never considered that approach because it seemed so primitive. It is primitive, Marcus agreed. That's why it works. Complex systems fail in complex ways. Simple systems are robust. But if it's so effective, why are you deactivating them? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because effective doesn't mean right. Come on, I want to show you something. He took them to another facility, this one above ground. It was the Geneva Memorial. The wall with millions of names. Engineers from a dozen different species stood reading the names, trying to understand. 2 billion people died in the Cascade event, Marcus explained. Not from war, from automation, from systems that were too fast and too efficient. We built this memorial to remember, to make sure we never forget what happens when we prioritize effectiveness over wisdom. A young Velkari engineer touched the wall gently. We have memorials too, for wars, for disasters. But this is different. You're mourning people you killed yourselves. Yes, Marcus said simply. That's the hardest kind of memorial to build. The kind where you're remembering your own mistakes. At the council headquarters, Ambassador Vasquez sat in a meeting with representatives from 12 species. They were working on establishing the first demilitarized zone around a developing world called Tarnis 4. The Tarnians had just discovered faster-than-light travel and were starting to explore their region of space. They don't need council warships showing up and intimidating them, Elena explained. They need room to grow. Room to make mistakes and learn from them. What if they become hostile? A military advisor asked. Then we respond appropriately. But we don't assume hostility. We don't treat every new species as a potential threat. Counselor Zarthex nodded. The ambassador is right. We created the situation with Earth by treating them as primitives to be controlled. We won't make that mistake again. The vote passed. Tarnis 4 would have a 10-light-year demilitarized zone around their system. No military vessels allowed without their express permission. It was the first of what Elena hoped would be many such zones. After the meeting, Zarthex approached Elena. My cousin is awake. Admiral Korvax. He came out of his coma last week. Elena felt her heart tighten. How is he? Physically? He'll recover. Mentally? Zarthex shook his head. He doesn't sleep. When he closes his eyes, he sees his ship dying, hears his crew screaming. He asks to speak with you. Me? Why? He says he needs to understand. Needs to hear it from you. Will you come? Elena agreed. 2 days later, she stood outside a hospital room in Council Medical Facility. Through the window, she could see Korvax. The powerful admiral who had commanded 30 warships now looked small in his hospital bed. Bandages covered much of his scaled body. She entered quietly. Korvax turned his head to look at her. Ambassador Vasquez, he said. His voice was weak. Admiral, I'm glad you're recovering, am I? He tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. I'm alive. That's not the same as recovering. Elena pulled a chair next to his bed. Why did you want to see me? To ask you a question. Why did you warn us? If your systems were that absolute, that powerful, you could have destroyed my fleet without any notice at all. Why give us the chance to turn back? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Because we hoped you would listen. Because we wanted to be better than our fear. But we didn't listen. No, you didn't. Korvax stared at the ceiling. I've been thinking about that conversation. With the human coordinator. He begged me to turn around. Told me about his family. His children. And I ignored him. I thought he was weak, emotional. Now I realize he was terrified. Not of dying, of what his system would do. Michael Chen, Elena said. The coordinator's name was Michael Chen. He hasn't slept properly since that day. He sees your ships dying every time he closes his eyes. As do I. Korvax turned to look at her. Over 7,000 of my crew died. Do you know what that feels like? To know that you led them to their deaths through arrogance? I know what it feels like to build the weapon that killed them, Elena replied. To know that my species created something so terrible. Every survivor we pulled from those escape pods, every injured person we treated, I saw them and thought, we did this. We built the system that destroyed them. They sat in silence for a while. There's something I don't understand, Korvax finally said. If you have such power, why not use it to conquer? Why not force the Council to accept your terms at gunpoint? Because that's not who we want to be. We built those weapons out of fear and necessity, but we never wanted to use them. When we did, when we saw what they did to your fleet, it reminded us of our worst moments, of the Cascade event, of what we're capable of when we let fear control us. So you're deactivating them. Yes. Slowly, carefully, maintaining enough for defense but removing the excess. We can't let fear define us anymore. Korvax closed his eyes. I was so certain, so proud. The Council has been powerful for so long. We thought we knew everything. And then you showed us how little we actually understood. You're not the only ones learning, Elena said. We're learning too. Learning that surviving isn't enough. We have to learn to live. Really live. Without walls so high we can't see over them. She stood to leave. Ambassador? Korvax called. Thank you for saving the survivors. You didn't have to do that. Yes, we did, because that's who we choose to be. 3 months later, Elena stood in an observation deck watching a Council engineering team working on installing Earth-designed defensive systems around a Council world. The technology was simpler than what Earth used, less automated, more dependent on sentient decision-making. The Council wanted our weapons, Dr. Amira Okonkwo said, standing beside her. But we gave them something different, something that requires them to think before they fire. Think they'll use it wisely? Time will tell. But at least we're giving them the tools to defend themselves without the tools to accidentally destroy themselves. Elena watched the work continue, ships moving slowly, engineers working carefully. No rush, no panic, just steady, careful progress. Dr. Okonkwo, can I ask you something? Of course. When you designed the defense network, did you ever imagine we'd be taking it apart? Amira smiled. I hoped we would. Every system I've ever built, I've designed with deactivation in mind. Because the best defense isn't the one that wins every fight. It's the one you never have to use. Far out in the Kuiper Belt, platform KB-2847 drifted through space, its weapons dark, its AI sleeping. Around it, other platforms were being slowly shut down one by one. The fortress humanity had built was coming down. On Tarnus 4, a young alien looked up at the stars and saw a Council ship passing through their system. But this ship didn't approach aggressively. It maintained its distance. It sent friendly greetings. It offered help if needed but didn't demand anything in return. The young Tarnian wondered what had changed. Why the powerful council, which had always seemed so intimidating in the stories, was suddenly being so respectful. She didn't know about Earth, didn't know about the fleet that died in 11 seconds. The emergency alarm woke Ambassador Velnara from her meditation. Her slender blue-gray fingers trembled as she reached for the communication device. The message that appeared made her 3 hearts stop for a moment. Meditation colony was burning. She sat up in her quarters on Earth, the heavy gravity pulling at her fragile bones. Even after 2 years on this dangerous world, she still felt the weight pressing down on her. But that discomfort was nothing compared to the horror. Scrolling across her screen, the Krathax had come. Velnara had heard stories about the Krathax swarm. Every species in the Galactic Coalition knew the tales. They were nightmare creatures that lived in the dark spaces between stars. The Coalition had built massive barriers to keep them locked away in the void sector. Those barriers had held for 300 years, until today. The video feed from meditation showed chaos. Her people, the Arxians, were running through burning streets. The Krathax looked like giant insects made of black metal and hate. They moved in perfect coordination, cutting through buildings and people alike. Arxians were peaceful. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight back. The Coalition Defense Force had responded within an hour. Velnara watched as their elegant ships arrived, firing blue beams of energy at the swarm. For a few minutes it seemed to work. The Krathax fell by the hundreds, then everything changed. The creatures adapted. Their shells shifted, absorbed the energy, even reflected it back. Within 20 minutes, the Coalition ships were retreating. Within an hour, they were destroyed. The Krathax kept coming, and they were learning from every attack. Velnara watched 3 more colonies fall before dawn broke over Earth. The Coalition sent more ships, different weapons, new strategies. Nothing worked. The Krathax adapted to everything. They were spreading fast, consuming everything in their path. She tried calling the High Council. They were in emergency session but had no answers. Every military expert said the same thing. The Krathax could not be stopped with current Coalition technology. They needed time to research, to develop new weapons, to understand the enemy. Time they did not have. Velnara looked out her window at the human city below. She had been the Arxian ambassador to Earth for 2 years. Ever since humanity discovered faster-than-light travel and encountered the Coalition. It had not gone well. The Coalition had welcomed humanity at first. Then they visited Earth. They saw the violent weather, the dangerous animals, the toxic plants, the crushing gravity. They studied human history and found endless wars. They watched human entertainment and saw glorified violence. They tested human biology and found creatures built to survive almost anything. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. Only 3 other known planets were that dangerous. Humanity was declared too unstable, too violent, too unpredictable. They were restricted to their own solar system. The quarantine had lasted 50 years. Velnara herself had voted for the restriction. She had been afraid of humans. Now, watching her homeworld die, she wondered if she had been afraid of the wrong thing. She pulled up the classified files she was not supposed to have. Human military capability assessments. The Coalition had studied them carefully during the first contact. The reports were disturbing. Humans had thousands of different weapons, from simple chemical explosives to complex biological agents. They fought in conditions that would kill most species. They had a concept called acceptable losses that horrified Coalition observers. They crashed ships into targets deliberately. They poisoned entire areas to stop enemies. They never stopped attacking, even when injured or outnumbered. Most disturbing was their spacecraft. Human ships were built like their bodies, heavy, armored, redundant. Coalition ships were elegant and efficient. Human ships were brutal and over-engineered. Every human warship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Coalition had banned most of these weapons centuries ago. War was supposed to be civilized, precise, humane. The Coalition used energy weapons that could be calibrated to disable rather than kill. They followed strict rules of engagement. They valued every life. Humans fought to win. Velnara's hands shook as she made her decision. She was about to commit the most serious crime in Coalition law. She was about to contact a restricted species and invite them beyond the quarantine zone. She could be imprisoned for life. Her people might exile her. The council would certainly remove her from her position. But her people were dying. Millions of them. She opened a secure channel to the United Earth Nations Fleet Command. A human face appeared on her screen, dark-skinned with close-cut gray hair. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo looked surprised to see an alien calling at 3 in the morning. Ambassador Velnara, is something wrong? Velnara's translator converted her telepathic communication into words. Admiral, I need to show you something. Please understand that what I am about to do is illegal by coalition law. I am acting alone without authorization. She transmitted the video feeds from meditation. She sent reports of the Krathax advance. She included tactical data on every failed coalition defense. She watched the Admiral's expression change from confusion to understanding, to grim determination. How many casualties? The Admiral asked quietly. 4 colonies lost. 15 million dead in 6 hours. The projections say the Krathax will reach the core coalition worlds in 3 weeks. They will kill everyone. Billions of lives. And your military? Failing. They adapt too fast. We have never faced anything like this. Our weapons are not designed to... She paused, searching for the right word. We are not designed to kill efficiently. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. You want us to help. I am begging you to help. I know what my people said about you. I know we imprisoned you in your own system. I know we called you dangerous and barbaric. I voted for the quarantine myself. Velnara felt tears forming in her large eyes. I was wrong. We were all wrong. We need dangerous right now. We need barbaric. We need Deathworlders. Admiral Okonkwo stood up. Show me the coordinates. The Council will not authorize this. They will order you to stay away. Ambassador, with respect, I do not care what your Council orders. You came to Earth and asked for help. That is enough for me. The Admiral's face was hard. We remember being judged. We remember being locked away like criminals. But we also remember what it feels like to face extinction. Send me everything you have on these Krathax. Velnara transmitted the data, her heart's pounding. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. You might not like what we bring. The Admiral paused. We will not fight like the Coalition, Ambassador. We will not be clean or civilized. We will be what we are. I know, Velnara whispered. That is exactly what I am counting on. The transmission ended. Velnara sat in the darkness of her quarters, feeling the weight of Earth pressing down on her. She had just invited the most feared species in the galaxy to break quarantine and enter Coalition space. She had unleashed the Deathworlders. She only hoped she had done it in time. Outside her window, she could see lights flickering on across the human military complex. Alarms began to sound. In orbit above, the human fleet was waking up. Earth was going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. The first human missile struck a Krathax vessel before they even knew what was happening. The explosion was not clean energy, not a precise beam. It was fire and shrapnel and expanding gas. The Krathax ship tore apart, pieces spinning into space. The swarm hesitated for exactly 3 seconds. In that time, 200 more missiles arrived. On the bridge of the Relentless, Captain Chen watched the tactical display with cold focus. All railguns continuous fire. Target the smaller ships first. Create gaps in their formation. The railguns fired. They were simple weapons, really. Just magnetic coils accelerating solid metal slugs to a fraction of light speed. No fancy energy fields to adapt to. Just pure kinetic force, physics that could not be negotiated with. The slugs punched through Krathax armor like it was paper. The creatures had never encountered anything that hit this hard, this fast, this simple. Their adaptive shells tried to harden, tried to deflect. But there was no deflecting a half-ton chunk of tungsten moving at 50 kilometers per second. Sir, the Krathax are changing formation, his tactical officer reported. They are spreading out, trying to surround us. Let them try. Helm, take us straight at the Queen ship. All vessels, follow our lead. We break their center. Science Officer Kelvin gripped his station as the ship accelerated. This is insane. You cannot charge directly at them. Watch us, Chen said. The human fleet drove like a spear into the heart of the swarm. Krathax ships swarmed around them, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. They fired organic weapons, things that grew and spread and tried to eat through human hulls. But human ships were not built like coalition vessels. They were ugly and thick, with armor plating 3 times what any sane engineer would use. The Krathax weapons splashed against them like water against stone. Multiple impacts, decks 7 through 12, the damage control officer reported. Hull integrity at 92%. 92%. A coalition ship would be crippled. The Relentless barely noticed. Return fire. Show them what real weapons look like. The human fleet unleashed everything. Missiles with chemical warheads. Railgun slugs. Laser point defense. And then, because humans had learned warfare in the darkest ways, they used cluster munitions that split into hundreds of smaller explosives, filling space with shrapnel. The Krathax died by thousands. But more kept coming. Sir, Commander Riley is requesting permission to launch boarding parties. Chen looked at his display. The Krathax had taken over a coalition station orbiting Meditation's third moon. There were 3,000 Arxian civilians trapped inside. The Krathax were using them as food, as hosts for their young, as living shields. Permission granted. Tell Riley to bring them home. Commander Jackson Jax Riley was a career Marine born on Mars, trained on Earth. He had volunteered for this mission knowing exactly what it meant. Now he stood in the launch bay with his team, checking their combat suits one last time. Listen up, he told his people. Those creatures in there are using civilians as hostages. We are going in hard and fast. Rules of engagement are simple. Anything that is not human or obviously civilian, you kill it. No hesitation, no mercy. We save who we can, and we make the Krathax regret ever coming to this system. The assault shuttles launched. They crossed the space between ships while the fleet provided covering fire. Krathax fighters tried to intercept them. Human point defense cut them apart. The shuttles hit the station hull like hammers. Breaching charges blew holes in the metal. Marines poured through, weapons hot. The Krathax had never fought humans in close quarters before. They learned quickly that this was a mistake. Marines wore powered armor that let them move in any gravity. They carried rifles that fired depleted uranium rounds, shotguns loaded with flechettes and flamers for when things got really bad. They had been training for combat since they could walk. Earth had taught them to fight, and Earth was not a gentle teacher. Riley's team found the first group of civilians in a storage bay. The Arxians were huddled in a corner, thin and terrified. Krathax warriors surrounded them, mandibles clicking. Contact front, Riley called. Light them up. The Marines opened fire. The Krathax tried to rush them, tried to overwhelm them with speed and numbers. They died in heaps. The uranium rounds punched through their carapaces. The flechettes shredded their joints. When one got too close, a Marine would simply smash it with the powered fist of their armor. Civilians, move. Follow us. We are getting you out. The Arxians stared in shock. These armored figures moved like predators, fought like demons, killed without hesitation. But when Riley reached down to help up a fallen child, his voice was gentle. It is okay. We have got you. You are safe now. They fought through 6 more sections. Every room was a battle. The Krathax did not retreat, did not surrender. They fought to the death because that was all they knew. So did the Marines. Sergeant Maria Torres was the squad medic. She had saved 17 lives and taken 20 more before they reached the main civilian holding area. What she saw there made her want to vomit inside her helmet. The Krathax had been using the Arxians as incubators. Young creatures were growing inside still living hosts. The victims were in agony, kept alive by alien biology they could not fight. Riley, we have a problem, she called on the comm. Riley came through a doorway, his armor covered in green blood. He looked at the scene and his expression went hard. Can you save them? Some, maybe. The ones who are not too far gone. Then we save them. All of them we can. He turned to his team. Set up a perimeter. Torres, you have got 10 minutes. Do what you can. She worked fast, cutting away alien tissue, injecting human medicines that might work, might not. The Arxians screamed. She kept working. Some she could save. Some she could only make comfortable. One young Arxian male grabbed her hand. Thank you, he whispered. Even if I die, thank you for trying. She squeezed his hand gently. You are not going to die. I have not lost a patient today, and I am not starting now. Back in space, the battle had reached its critical point. The human fleet had carved through half the swarm. Bodies of Krathax ships drifted in the void. But the humans were taking damage too. 3 ships destroyed, 5 more heavily damaged. And still the Krathax kept coming, kept adapting. Captain, they are learning, Kelvin reported. Their armor is hardening against the railgun rounds. It is taking 3 times as many hits to kill them now. Chen nodded. He had expected this. How long until they adapt completely? Maybe an hour. Maybe less. Then we end this now. All ships concentrate fire on the Queen ship. hit it with everything. The entire human fleet turned their weapons on the massive central vessel. Missiles streaked across space. Railgun slugs stitched lines of explosions across its surface. But the Queen ship was enormous, its armor thick, its ability to regenerate fast. "We are barely scratching it," the tactical officer said. Chen looked at his display, looked at the damage reports, looked at the list of his crew, 400 names, 400 people who trusted him to make the right call. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Chen. The Queen ship is the center of their network. Kill it and the swarm falls apart, but we cannot crack it with conventional weapons. So I am going to do something unconventional." He looked at his crew. They looked back. They knew what he was going to say. They had all volunteered for this. They all knew the risks. "We are going to ram it." Kelvin's eyes went wide. "You cannot. That is suicide." "No," Chen said quietly. "It is warfare. And humanity has been very good at this for a very long time." He turned to his crew. "Anyone who wants to evacuate, get to the shuttles now. No shame in it. This is above and beyond." Nobody moved. His helmsman, a young woman from Luna, smiled slightly. "Where are we going to go, sir?" "This is our ship." Chen felt something in his chest tighten, pride, grief, determination. "Then let us make it count. All non-essential crew to escape pods. Essential crew, set collision course. Maximum speed." The Relentless turned. Its engines burned at full power. It accelerated directly toward the Queen ship, leaving a trail of fire across space. "Sir, the other ships are hailing us," communications said. "Tell them to keep firing. Cover our approach. And tell them," Chen paused, "tell them it has been an honor." The Queen ship saw them coming. It tried to move, but it was too big, too slow. Smaller Krathax vessels threw themselves in the way. The Relentless smashed through them without slowing. The distance closed. 1,000 meters. 500. 100. All crew brace for impact. The UN destroyer Relentless struck the Queen ship at 3% of light speed. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, the Queen ship was gone. In its place was an expanding cloud of debris and radiation. And across the system, the Krathax swarm went suddenly still. Without the Queen, they were lost. Confused. Individual creatures instead of a single mind. The human fleet did not give them time to adapt. They hunted down every last one. Commander Riley brought the civilians home on a different ship. As they left the station, he looked back at the expanding cloud that had been the Relentless. "Semper Fi, Captain," he whispered. "Semper Fi." Sergeant Maria Torres had been awake for 36 hours. Her hands shook as she injected another dose of antibiotics into an Arxian child. Around her, the medical bay was filled with wounded from a dozen different species. Human medics moved between them, treating injuries they had never seen before, using medicines that might work or might not. "Sergeant, you need to rest," one of her corpsmen said. "After this one," she replied. She always said that. There was always one more patient. The child looked up at her with large, dark eyes. "Will I be okay?" Torres smiled. It was hard to smile after everything she had seen, but she managed. "Yes, you are going to be fine. You are tough. Humans are tough, not Arxians. You survived the Krathax. That makes you tough enough for me." Outside the medical bay, the fleet was hunting down the last of the swarm. Without the Queen, the Krathax had broken into small groups. They were still dangerous, still deadly, but they were no longer coordinated. The remaining human ships methodically tracked down each group and eliminated them. No prisoners. No mercy. The Krathax had shown what they were. Humanity responded in kind. In the command center of the UN cruiser Defiant, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo reviewed the casualty reports. The Relentless destroyed with all hands. The destroyers Dauntless and Tempest lost. 2 cruisers severely damaged. In total, 573 dead. Another 200 wounded. But they had saved 2.4 million civilians. They had stopped the swarm. They had won. The cost still hurt. Ambassador Velnara found the Admiral standing at an observation window, looking out at the debris field that had been the battlefield. The Arxian moved slowly in the human ship's gravity, even with assistance. "Admiral Okonkwo," she said quietly, "I am sorry." "Sorry for what?" "For Captain Chen. For all the humans who died. This is my fault. I called you here." The Admiral turned to face her. "Ambassador, Captain Chen chose to be here." Every person in this fleet volunteered. They knew the risks. They came anyway because it was the right thing to do. She paused. But yes, it hurts. It will always hurt. That is the price of caring. I do not understand how you do it. How you transition so quickly from combat to rescue. Your people were killing Krathax with extreme violence one moment, then treating our wounded with gentle care the next. Okonkwo smiled slightly. That is what makes us human. We are capable of both. We can fight like demons when we must, but we also know when to be kind. Down on Meditation Colony, Commander Riley walked through the ruins. His Marines were helping clear rubble, searching for survivors, setting up temporary shelters. The Arxians watched them with mixed expressions of gratitude and fear. A group of children approached him. They were thin and dirty but alive. One of them, braver than the others, tugged on his armored leg. Are you really from the Deathworld? Riley removed his helmet. His face was scarred, tired, but his eyes were kind. Yes, Earth. They say Earth is terrible. Full of monsters and poison and death. It is, Riley agreed. But it also has beautiful sunsets and oceans and mountains.
It has music and art and laughter.
Earth is hard, but it is also wonderful. And it taught us to protect the things we love. Even people who are not from Earth, especially them, the child thought about this. Thank you for protecting us. Riley ruffled the kid's hair gently. Anytime, little one. Anytime. On a human medical ship, Science Officer Kelvin was studying the remains of the Krathax. Dr. James Park, the fleet xenobiologist, worked beside him. They had been analyzing the creatures for hours. This is disturbing, Kelvin said, looking at the genetic data. The Krathax are not from this galaxy. Park looked up sharply. What? Their biology is completely alien. Not just different species alien. Wrong universe alien. They do not belong here. Kelvin pulled up more data, and these samples suggest this was not their full force. This was a scouting party. A scouting party that nearly destroyed the coalition. Park said quietly. If that is just the scouts, what is the main force like? I do not know. But based on the quantum signatures in their tissue, they came from a trans-dimensional breach. They might come back. Might bring more. Park sat back. We need to tell Admiral Okonkwo. She needs to know something else too. Kelvin hesitated. I have been observing your people during the battle. Studying how you fight, how you think. Do you want to know what I learned? Tell me. You are terrifying, Kelvin said bluntly. The coalition was right to fear you. You are efficient killers. You adapt quickly. You use overwhelming force. You sacrifice your own lives without hesitation. You turn everything into a weapon. He paused. But you are also the most compassionate species I have ever encountered. You risk everything to save strangers. You treat your enemies wounded. You comfort frightened children. I do not understand how you can be both things at once. Park smiled. Earth taught us that we need both. The universe is dangerous. If we were not strong, we would be extinct. But if we were not kind, we would not be worth saving. We are survivors, but we remember what we are surviving for. A message came through. High Counselor Thren was arriving in the system. He wanted to speak with Admiral Okonkwo immediately. The Admiral met him in the conference room of the Defiant. Thren arrived with an escort of Coalition officials. They all looked uncomfortable on the human ship. Admiral Okonkwo, Thren began formally. The Coalition Council has sent me to assess the situation. The situation is resolved, Okonkwo replied. The Krathax are eliminated. The survivors are safe. Humanitarian aid is being distributed. We will begin system cleanup tomorrow. You exceeded your authority. You violated quarantine. You deployed banned weapons. You destroyed Coalition property in the fighting. Okonkwo's expression hardened. We saved 2.4 million lives, at the cost of 573 human lives. Was it worth it? You would have to ask them. But I know what they would say. They would say yes, because that is who we are. Thren was quiet for a moment. Then to everyone's surprise, his glow softened. You are right. That is who you are. And I was wrong about you. What? I came here to order you back to quarantine. To file charges. To reinforce the restrictions. Thren looked at a display showing human medics treating alien wounded. But I have been watching your people work. I have read the reports. I spoke with Ambassador Velnara and the survivors you rescued. I realize now that the Coalition made a mistake 50 years ago. He turned back to face Okonkwo. We judged you based on your capacity for violence. We did not look at your capacity for sacrifice. We saw your weapons and missed your hearts. We called you Deathworlders like it was an insult. But perhaps it is not. Perhaps it is simply what you are. And perhaps the galaxy needs that. What are you saying, Counselor? I am saying the quarantine was wrong. I am saying we need you, not just for this crisis, but for whatever comes next. Thren gestured to the data on the Krathax. Dr. Park and Science Officer Kelvin have briefed me. If the Krathax return with greater numbers, the Coalition will not survive. We are not built for this kind of war. But we are, Okonkwo said. Yes, you are. Thren took a breath. I will recommend to the Council that humanity be granted full membership. No restrictions, no quarantine, full integration, just like that, just like that. You earned it with blood and courage. The Coalition owes you a debt we can never fully repay. Ambassador Velnara, standing in the corner, felt tears forming. She had called the humans here expecting to be punished. Instead, she had changed the course of history. Later, after the officials left, Okonkwo found Torres still in the medical bay. The sergeant was finally taking a break, sitting against a wall with her eyes closed. Sergeant, you did good work. Torres opened her eyes. Did we win, ma'am? We won. What did it cost? Too much. It always costs too much. Okonkwo sat down beside her. But we saved millions. We stopped a nightmare, and we showed the galaxy who we really are. Not just Deathworlders, protectors. Torres nodded slowly. Captain Chen would have liked that. He would have. They sat in silence for a while, two soldiers mourning the fallen, taking strength from each other. Outside, human and alien crews worked together to rebuild. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had earned their place in it. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Coalition had never been so crowded. Representatives from 300 species filled the chamber, their voices creating a noise like a massive storm. In the center, on a platform designed for honored guests, stood Admiral Sarah Okonkwo and a small human delegation. They were the first humans to stand here in 50 years. High Counselor Thren called for silence. His voice echoed through the chamber. Members of the Coalition, we are here to discuss the human question. For half a century, we have restricted humanity to their home system. We called them too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. We were wrong, the chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others shouted in protest. Thren waited for quiet before continuing. 3 weeks ago, the Krathax swarm broke through our defenses. They destroyed 4 colonies in 6 hours. Our military forces could not stop them. Millions died. Billions more faced extinction. He looked directly at the human delegation. Ambassador Velnara of the Arxian people violated our laws and called for help from the restricted Deathworlders. They answered. Screens around the chamber lit up, showing footage from the battle. Humans fighting through impossible odds. Ships sacrificing themselves to save civilians. Marines rescuing hostages from certain death. Medics working themselves to exhaustion to save alien lives. The humans deployed 47 warships. They lost 3 ships and 573 lives. In return, they saved 2.4 million civilians. They eliminated the Krathax threat completely. They asked for nothing in return. A representative from the Viridian military stood. Counselor Thren, we do not dispute their effectiveness. But look at how they fight. They use banned weapons. They show no restraint. They crashed a ship into the enemy. This is barbaric. Admiral Okonkwo stepped forward. May I speak? Thren nodded. The floor recognizes Admiral Okonkwo of the United Earth Nations. She looked around at the assembled species. Some met her eyes. Many looked away. You call us barbaric. You are probably right. Earth made us hard. We fight dirty. We use every weapon we have. We do not play fair, she paused. But we also do not let innocents die when we can save them. Your people had rules about warfare. The Krathax did not care about your rules. They were killing everyone. Someone had to stop them. We did. Another representative stood. This one from a species humanity had never seen before. But what happens next time? What if humans decide to use those weapons against us? What if the Deathworlders become the threat? Before Okonkwo could respond, Ambassador Velnara rose. Her voice was quiet but firm. I will answer that. I was one of those who voted for the human quarantine. I was afraid of them. Then my people were dying, and I broke our laws to call them for help. Do you know what they did? She looked around the chamber. They came immediately, without hesitation. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand concessions. They simply came because it was right. And when the battle was over, those same humans who fought so fiercely spent days treating our wounded, feeding our children, rebuilding our homes. Her voice shook with emotion. I have seen what humans can do when they fight. But I have also seen what they do when the fighting stops. They are not monsters. They are protectors. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to speak. The Arxians supported humanity's integration. So did the survivors from other colonies. But many remained fearful. Finally, Councillor Thren called for a vote. The proposal is simple. Humanity is granted full coalition membership with no restrictions. In return, Earth agrees to serve as the coalition's emergency response force. When threats emerge that require immediate military action, humanity will answer the call. All in favor? The vote was closer than Okonkwo expected. But it passed. Humanity was free. 3 months later, Commander Jackson Riley stood in a cemetery on Earth. Rows of white markers stretched across green grass. At the center was a memorial wall, listing names. 573 of them. The crew of the Relentless, the Dauntless, and the Tempest. Every person who died at meditation. Riley placed a hand on the wall. We did it, Captain Chen. We are in the coalition. Full members. They are calling us the Deathworlder fleet now. Officially. Children's laughter came from nearby. A group of Arxian youngsters were playing in a park adjacent to the cemetery. They had come to Earth as refugees and decided to stay. Their parents wanted them to grow up on the world that saved them. One of the children ran up to Riley. It was the same child from meditation, the one who had asked about death worlds. She was healthier now, stronger. Commander Riley, we are learning about Earth in school. My teacher says it has lions and sharks and hurricanes. All true, Riley said. And you really grew up here? Born and raised. The child's eyes were wide. It must have been scary. Riley knelt down. Sometimes. But it also taught us to be strong. And being strong means we can protect people. People like you. When I grow up, I want to be strong like humans, he smiled. You already are. You survived the Krathax. You are braver than you know. The child hugged him and ran back to her friends. Riley watched them play, their laughter echoing across the memorial. This was what Captain Chen died for. This moment. These lives. Back in space, aboard the newly commissioned UEN battleship Relentless II, named in honor of the fallen ship, Captain Torres stood on the bridge. She had been promoted after her heroism at meditation. Now she commanded the flagship of humanity's fleet. Science Officer Kelvin had stayed with the humans. He was at his station, analyzing data from the outer rim. Captain, I'm picking up unusual readings from Sector 447. Quantum fluctuations similar to what we saw before the Krathax appeared. Torres felt a chill. How similar? Very similar. But much larger. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Torres. Prepare for possible contact. Alert Coalition Command. Something is coming. Within minutes, the response came back. Not from the Coalition. From Earth. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on screen. Captain Torres, you have got company coming? Looks that way, ma'am. The reading suggests something big. Then let us go meet it. The fleet is launching now. 47 ships became 70. We have been building. Okonkwo smiled. After all, we have got a job to do now. We are the Deathworlder fleet. When the galaxy needs protection, they call us. And we answer, Torres said. Always. Across Coalition space, the news spread. Humanity was mobilizing. The Deathworlders were going to war again. Some species felt fear at the news, but more felt relief, because they had learned something important. When darkness came to the galaxy, when monsters appeared from the void, when extinction loomed on the horizon, there was a fleet that would answer the call. There were warriors from a harsh world who refused to let innocents die. There were humans who remembered what they were fighting for. Commander Riley received the alert at the cemetery. He looked at the memorial wall one last time. Duty calls, Captain. We will make you proud, he reported to his ship. Around Earth, the fleet was gathering. 70 warships, each one crewed by volunteers who knew the risks. They had seen what happened at meditation. They knew that some of them might not come home. They went anyway, because Earth had taught them to be strong. And humanity had decided that being strong meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. They were Deathworlders. They came from a world of hurricanes and predators, of ice ages and meteor strikes, of survival or extinction. And they had survived. Not just survived, but thrived. Not just thrived, but grew kind. They had learned to use their strength not for conquest, but for defense. Not to dominate, but to shield. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. In their wake, Earth spun on, that beautiful, terrible world that had forged them. That cruel mother who taught her children to be both fierce and gentle, deadly and compassionate, warriors and healers. Somewhere in the outer darkness, something was coming, something vast and hungry and full of hate. It had seen the galaxy and thought it would be easy prey. It did not know about Earth. It did not know about humans. It was about to learn. On the bridge of the Relentless 2, Captain Torres looked at her crew. They were ready. They were always ready. Because readiness was survival, and survival was what Earth taught best. All ships, this is Torres. We have got a distress signal from Sector 447. Multiple colonies under attack. The coalition forces are overwhelmed. They need help. She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator protecting her pack. Time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders do best. Set course. Maximum speed. Let us go save some lives. The fleet surged forward into the dark. Behind them, the memorial on Earth stood silent, names carved in stone. Before them, unknown dangers waited. But the Deathworlder fleet did not hesitate, because when the galaxy called for help, humanity would always answer. Always. The stars had never seen anything like them. Survivors from a world that tried to kill them every day. Warriors who fought not for glory or conquest, but simply because it was right. Protectors who would fly into hell itself to save a single life. They were human. They were the Deathworlder fleet, and the galaxy was safer because they existed.